So let's continue from here.
French kisses, back slaps, the love taps, the happy claps, the hugging, the pigbacks, the holding.
So we were talking about taxes, and you know, taxes are important because the government relies on these taxes to deliver social services for its people and other like military purposes or military issues, and also for others. And as we've said, high taxation can lead to black market growth and cross-border shopping. For example, if you take China, it's the leading country with high import duties, and this has resulted in smuggling of oil, cigarettes, spices, and film. Okay, most of the film produced in the US, for example, is smuggled into China. Okay, and in Great Britain, cars returning from France bring in average 80 bottles of wine. Okay, they smuggle this wine to Great Britain from France because of the tax is very high, and also because of this high tax, people would like to pay using cashes, because when you use cash, then that cash is not registered into the system, then you might not pay taxes. Okay, so that's why the government insists on its people to use debit card or credit card for payments, because it's easy for the government to track the sales volume of companies. Okay, but if you use cash or if you use barter transaction, there is no way that the government knows about these transactions. Okay, and this comes as the result of high taxes. And companies like Amazon, Google, and Apple, they attempt to limit tax liability by shifting location of income. So this means they try to change their location of income from a country which requires high tax to a country which requires lower taxes. Okay, so to get this advantage of lower tax. And the other topic in political environment is the seizure of assets. So this is expropriation. Expropriation means government action to dispossess a foreign company or investor. So this means, let's say there is one incident that you know, Cuba, right? In Cuba, there were sugar companies. These sugar companies are owned by USA. Okay, but the Cuban government once has taken or has overtaken these sugar companies which were owned by the USA. Okay, the reason is because USA has imposed higher import taxes, and Cuba was not happy about this, and they have confiscated this business from the US owners. Okay, so but according to the international law, a government or a country cannot just confiscate or cannot just take away businesses from other people or investors coming from other countries. They have to pay compensation. Okay, compensation should be provided in prompt, effective, and adequate manner to businesses which the government is taking away from this foreign companies or investors. Okay, so this confiscation occurs when no compensation is provided. So I think there is a noise, right? So please turn off your. So let me mute. I think we are okay. So now we can. I think you can hear me now. Okay, so we are talking about seizure of assets or taking away assets from investors or foreign companies. As I've said, for example, the Cuban government has taken over a company which is owned by USA investors, and this was because the US government subsidizes most of its sugar companies located in the US. Okay, so they also have imposed, the US has imposed high tax on import of sugar, okay, to the US. So because of that, and there were so many US sugar companies in Cuba, and the Cuban company has taken over this sugar companies from this US investors. Okay, so it's actually not illegal to confiscate, or not confiscate, actually to expropriate these businesses. Okay, but the government has to provide the necessary incentives or compensations when they dispossess or take these companies from foreign investors. Okay, and there is this nationalization. So this nationalization is a little bit broader in its scope compared to this expropriation. Okay, so nationalization is a government takes control of some or all of the enterprises in the entire industry. Okay, so as I've said, it's not illegal, it's acceptable, but you have the government has to provide compensation for these businesses who they just took over. Okay, so why does the government says, or why does the government nationalize these businesses? Is because sometimes they would like to satisfy this public purpose, or they include adequate payments. Okay, so if the government thinks that these products are very necessary to the people, and they have to be provided at a lower price to the people, then the government might take over or might nationalize these companies which are previously owned by foreign investors, and the government can run it by itself. Okay, but as I've said, when the government nationalize or when they expropriate, then what they do is they have to pay compensation to the businesses, the necessary compensation, so that it's not violating any international laws. Okay, and the other is the creeping expropriation. So this limits economic activities of foreign. So in nationalization, you don't limit, you take over. Okay, but in creeping expropriation, so governments limit the economic activities of foreign firms. How? Through this means. One is they limits on repatriation of profits, dividends, and royalties. So this means, let's say there is a company in Korea. This company is a US company. Okay, as you know, international companies, they do business in Korea, but the remittance is sent to the USA, right? They send their profits to the USA. That is called remittance, right? So one way of nationalization or lower in its scope is creeping expropriation. So this means the government will limit on the amount of profits or dividends or royalties that are sent back to their parent companies or to the country of the owners of the businesses in your country. Okay, so as I said, if there are US companies in Korea, the Korean government can limit on the amount of profits or the percentage of profits or dividends or royalties which will be sent back to the USA. Okay, and the other way they can limit is technical assistance fees. Okay, they might charge them some technical assistance fees. They can increase local content laws, okay, to restrict this operation. They can limit taxes for hiring local nationals. Okay, so most of you, for example, are familiar with this one. Okay, so for example, any foreigner who opens a business in Korea, when they hire two foreign nationals, I mean, when they hire two foreign nationals here, right, in their businesses, they have to hire one Korean. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, this is the law by the government of Korea. Okay, so this means they prepare quotas, and these international companies, they have to hire employees from Korea. Okay, that is one limit of economic activity. The other is price control. So the government can control or can limit the price these companies charge for their products within Korea, right? And the other is discriminatory tariffs and non-tariff barriers could also be imposed, or discriminatory laws on patents and trademarks of this products could be imposed. Okay, so either the government take away or they confiscate the whole business and use it by themselves, okay, or they can expropriate totally, or there is a creeping expropriation where they can limit the economic activity of the foreign firms. Okay, so you have to be also familiar with these issues. So this is the second topic, because first one is until now we are talking about the political environment. Okay, as I've said, we have three major topics in this chapter. So the first one was the political environment. Then we had the second issue, which is the international law, and the third one is sidestepping legal issues. Okay, so we just talked about the political environment. So the second major topic is the international law. So the rules and principles that nation states consider binding amongst themselves is called the international law. Okay, so international laws early in the days were basically concerned with waging war, establishing some peace, and other political issues, okay, such as diplomatic recognition of new nation states or sovereign states. This was the job of what international law is concerned about. So, but now these days, the rules and principles that nation states consider binding among themselves will be treated by the international law. So this pertains to the property, trade, immigration, and other areas. Okay, so disputes between nations are issues of public international law. So you have heard of this World Court or International Court of Justice, right? So these are there to handle disputes among nation states, right? And the judicial arm of the United Nations. Okay, so this court, for example, the World Court is created to take care of disputes between nations or conflicts between nations. Okay. And so let's talk about the International Court of Justice. So this is the judicial arm of the United Nations, which is founded in 1947, and it settles conflicts between nations or disputes between nations. So in our case, disputes related to global marketing or international trade. Okay? And they also offer advices on legal issues submitted by various international agencies. So there are so many agencies which are basically concerned about International Court of Justice or justice issues. Okay, and this Court of Justice has this common laws and civil laws, and this actually the civil laws, they are adopted from the European, from Rome, and the common laws are actually adopted from the English common law. Okay, so the Napoleon, King Napoleon, right? That's the code of King Napoleon in 1804. Drew on the Roman legal system, and is a basis for continental European law today. And this code is known as the civil law. So the civil law has originated from Rome. Okay, and there is a common law which is rooted in English common law. Okay, so most of the issues, like for example here in common law, they talk about disputes are decided by the reliance on the authority of past judicial decisions. Companies are legally incorporated by state authority. Code law is used only in few areas. So the US Uniform Commercial Code, fully adopted by 49 of the states, except about 3 of them. So one of the states, which is Louisiana, is still influenced by the French civil law. So so this is civil law. Except Louisiana, the other 49 states, they follow this common law, which is based in the English common law. Okay, and the other is the civil law. The civil law, the legal system reflects the structural concepts and principles of the Romanian Empire. So the Roman Empire in the 19th century, and companies are formed by contract between 2 or more parties who are fully liable for their actions of the company. Okay, so the civil law talks about who is going to be responsible if this international companies has been involved in some kind of crime. Okay, so they will be treated by the civil law, and the common law will take care of the other aspects. Okay, so anyways, just know the classification, so it's not that important for us to explain more about the common and civil laws. And but the important thing is you have to know, for example, the Islamic law. The most of the Middle Eastern countries legal system is bound by the Islamic law. okay, or the law of Islam. So the law of Islam, or this called the Sharia, is a comprehensive code governing Muslim conduct in all areas of life, including the business itself. Okay, so for example, if you have a company operating in the Middle East, you have to be very careful about not going against the Sharia law. Okay, so for example, you cannot advertise beer on big billboard, okay, because the Sharia law forbids this kinds of activities. So beer advertisement in billboards, big billboards, is not allowed. So as global business experts, then you have to know, or at least the rudimentary, or at least the common things, or the things that are have implications for your business in the Islamic law. Okay, so Quran is a holy book for Islam, and actually the laws, or this comprehensive codes in Quran are like the code laws. Okay, so most of them are similar, but the Hadith, this is like the New Testament, I guess, is mostly has the common laws. Okay, so we have these two laws, the civil and common law, and these two laws are incorporated in the Quran and in the Hadith. Okay, so the important thing is Western businesses or global businesses who operate, for example, in Indonesia, because as you know, Indonesia is the country with highest Muslim population, right? And they practice the Sharia law, right? So as global business experts, we must have at least a rudimentary or minimal amount of understanding about the Sharia law and their implications, okay, in commercial activities. So as I've said, you have to be careful not to advertise beer on billboards. You have to be careful about your dressing style. You have to be very careful about the expressions, or for example, the music that you use for advertisements. Okay, so the thing is not to study the Islamic law, but the thing here is to know that when you operate in another country, then you have to know their codes of conduct, and you have to behave according to the codes of conduct of these countries. And we have now the third topic, that is sidestepping legal issues. So the managers of international business, they have to get expert legal opinions or expert legal help, because global legal environment is very dynamic and very complex. Okay, so so this is because the global legal environment is very dynamic and complex. Okay, so as managers or CEOs of this international businesses should seek for legal help or legal consultancy. Okay, so and they have to prevent conflicts. They have to establish the jurisdiction protect intellectual properties, protect license and trade secrets, avoid bribery, and take care of the advertisements and promotion. Okay, so these are the issues, and we'll talk about them one by one. Okay, so first let's talk about the jurisdiction. So the jurisdiction, it refers to the court's authority to rule on particular type of issues arising outside of a nation's borders, or to exercise power over individuals or entities from different countries. Okay, so this takes us to the concept of sovereignty or independent authority. Okay, so a nation state is a sovereign, or it is independent, right? So what is the jurisdiction of the government on the companies which operate within their borders? Okay, so these things you have to clear out before you open, for example, a foreign direct investment, or before you open your business in other countries. So what parts of the legal systems will be handled by the home country or the host country, I mean, and what part of the legal systems will be taken care of or will be handled by your home country. Okay, so there is a host country where the business is opened, okay, the new business, the international business, and there is a home country where it originally belongs. Okay, so employees of foreign companies should understand the extent to which they are subject to the jurisdiction of the host country courts. Okay, so if they are involved in any kind of, for example, misconduct, who is going to, or whose jurisdiction it is? Is it the host country's jurisdiction or the home country's jurisdiction to convict these people? Okay, and courts have the jurisdiction if it can be demonstrated that the company is doing business in the state in which the court sides. Okay. And the other is intellectual property. So in intellectual property, we have patents, we have trademarks, okay, we have copyrights, and it's not, for example, patents and trademarks protected in one country doesn't necessarily mean it is protected in other countries. Okay, patents, some of them are international and some of them are not international. The same is true for trademarks and copyrights too. Okay, so there are some organizations that are created to make this international. For example, if you register your patent to one of this organization, international organization, then your patent will be protected. For example, if you your patent is registered by the European Union, then all the countries within the European Union will respect and will also have to take care of these patents. But if the patent is not protected in other countries, then it's not a problem, or your patents might be stolen. Okay, so intellectual property must be registered in each country where the business is conducted. Okay, so if you have a business in Europe, you have to register these patents in Europe. If you have business in Africa, you have to register these patents in Asia. I mean Africa. So you know the difference between patent and copyright and trademark, right? So patent is an invention, right? And the inventor will be given the exclusive right to make, to use, and to sell an invention for a specified period of time. So actually, the inventor has the right even not to sell or not to make his invention public. Okay, they have the right, but patent, it gives the inventor the exclusive right to make, to use, to, and also to sell it. And trademarks could be distinctive mark, motto, device, or emblem used to distinguish it from other competing products. And as you know, there are so many businesses that are opened. For example, let's say, I will give you an example. In China, for example, you know, Adidas, right? So Adidas is a very famous brand, or let's take Nike. Okay, you know Nike. So Nike is a very well-known brand, right? And let's say there is a company in China, and this company in China is producing products, or let's say shoes, and the trademark of the shoes is Mike. This is actually legal, okay? But the problem is customers might be easily tricked into thinking that this is similar to Nike, or the same happens to Adidas. There are Adidas, Adibas, so many types of trademarks. So actually, if your trademark is registered internationally, then even close similar trademarks are not allowed for other businesses because it is confusing for the customers. Okay, so if you have a trademark, then you have to make sure that this trademark is protected. If you have a patent, you make sure this patent is protected. Copyright is protected. Okay? So copyright, trademark is a distinctive mark. Copyright establishes ownership of a written, recorded, performed, or filmed creative work. And there are, for example, some countries give 20 years for patent protection, and some countries give 70 years. Okay, it depends upon the place where you get the patent. Okay, so anyways, as a businesses, they have to register their intellectual property in a country where they conduct their businesses, so that they can protect their trademark from other similar trademarks that might confuse their customers. Okay, and the other is the infringement of intellectual property. The theft of intellectual property could be practiced in one of this. Okay, it could be counterfeiting, it could be associative counterfeiting, or imitation, or it could be piracy. So these are ways intellectual property could be infringed or could be stolen. Okay, so counterfeiting means unauthorized copying and production of a product. Okay, and associative counterfeit or imitation is when product names differ slightly from well-known brands. As I've said, Nike to Mike, Adidas to Abidas. Okay, since things like this are not allowed. Okay, and other is piracy, unauthorized publication or reproduction of copyrighted work is not allowed. Okay, so your intellectual property might be stolen in one of these ways. So this is just a case. So where this is Kleenex is a registered trademark that sells branded tissue, and they have this trademark, and this trademark, this one R is to mean that this trademark is registered. Okay, and no other businesses can use this as their own trademarks. Okay, and protecting intellectual property is continued. Then in the US, registration is with the Federal Patent and Trademark Office. In Europe, applications use the European Patent Office or register country by country. So here, if you register your patent, for example, for the European Patent Office, then your patent will be protected in all the 27 countries in the European Union. Okay? But you can also register your patents in each country within the European Union. Okay, that will protect your patent only within that country. For example, if you register your patent in France, then your patent will be protected in France only. But you can also protect your patent, registering it to the European Patent Office. That will give you the protection of the 27 countries. Okay, and there is this Madrid Protocol. Trademark owners are protected in 74 countries with just one application. Okay, so Madrid protection is even very broad as compared to the European or the Federal Patent Trademark Office. Okay, because once you register for the Madrid Protocol, this Madrid Protocol will help you to protect your trademark in 74 countries. So that place is called actually a World Intellectual Property Organization. Okay, that will help you protect your patent in 74 countries. Okay, and this organization is governed by this Madrid agreement, and 74 countries will protect your patent with just one application and application fee. So actually, there were so many complaints about the application fee required to pay for the patent registration. And after this Madrid agreement, then the fee required to pay for patent protection has been reduced, and that helped to people and businesses to register their patent easily. Okay, so firms exploit still. Okay, even though you register your patents in different countries, still firms use these loopholes in patent laws by filing for patent protection before entering the market. So what is done is some businesses just register a trademark. For example, ABCD. This is, let's say, I register this trademark by my business, thinking that this trademark will be very wanted for some business sometime in the future. So when this business is created and looking for this business, this trademark, then you sell it to them. And this is not actually illegal, but most people do this. For example, Nissan. You know Nissan, right? Nissan is a car producing company, right? There is a Nissan car, but if you go to the internet and look for Nissan.com, then you find a small computer repairing company. The trademark is registered by their name. Okay, so take 5 minutes break and we'll be back.